Hello again. So for our third section of today, we're going to talk about what sin really is, what temptation is, um, where sin really started from, and the differences in certain kinds of sins, just so that we can have a better idea of where sin came from, how we ended up with it, and what really we need to confess, whereas the things that we so much don't need to confess. So sin started with Adam and Eve. They committed the original sin, which means the first sin. Adam and Eve were the first two people created by God, and they lived in the Garden of Eden. They had everything they needed. They didn't commit any sins. They were perfect, but they were also human. They were the first humans he created, which means they had free will. And God told them that there was one tree in the Garden of Eden they couldn't eat fruit from. And so for a long time, they followed all of his rules until a snake, who was inhabited by Satan or was motivated by him, ended up talking Eve into eating fruit from the tree, who then talked Adam into eating fruit from the tree. So that was the very first time that humans had disobeyed God, had done something that God had told them not to do. And they did it on purpose, even though it was wrong. And they knew it was wrong. And that led to them being tossed out of the Garden of Eden. And that led to God saying that things were going to be a lot harder for people because they had chosen to not listen to him. So instead of being in this beautiful garden where there was just food and water everywhere and shelter and all sorts of things that people need, they were now out in the world where they had to farm for food and they had to hunt animals, and they needed to carry water because it wasn't always readily available, and life just got a lot harder. And they also faced death from that point on, that eventually their life would come to an end. So that's another thing that gets erased in baptism, is the original sin is taken away from us, because we're humans too, and the first humans that weren't created by God himself, Adam and Eve had children, and we are all descendants from them in a very distant way. And because of that, we've all inherited, or we've all gotten their original sin. So baptism takes that away. But then after baptism, when you sin on purpose, when you do something that's wrong, that you know is wrong, those are the kind of things that we need to confess. And because we talked a little bit about free will with Adam and Eve, because we are all human, we also have free will. And that means that we can make choices. We can make good choices or we can make bad choices. And we want to make good choices. We want to make all good choices based on the commandments and the rules that God has given us and what he expects from us. But because we have the free will to make bad decisions, sometimes we do. Why do we do that? Why do we do the wrong thing, even though we know that we shouldn't? It's because of something called temptation. Temptation is something that comes from Satan, from the devil, from evil. And it's this little voice in our head that says, come on, take that candy bar and walk out of the store with it. Who's gonna care? It's just a candy bar. It's that little voice in our head that says, oh my gosh, I don't want to get in trouble for breaking my mom's favorite picture frame, so I'm gonna hide the picture frame under the couch and maybe she won't find it. And then when she finds it, saying like, oh no, I didn't do that, instead of just telling the truth. So it's a feeling inside that makes you want to do something wrong because you think it will be fun, or because you're afraid of getting in trouble, or because your friends are trying to convince you to do something wrong and you just kind of go along with them because you want them to think that you're cool. You want them to be impressed. There's all different reasons and all different things that temptation can come from. So if we pray to God and we really, really focus on what he wants from us, we can overcome that temptation. It means that we can walk away from that and make a good choice. But when we do make a bad choice, when we sin, we do something on purpose that breaks one of the commandments, it turns you away from God. Now, there's two kinds of sins in the Catholic Church. Venial sin, what it's called, Venial. That is a type of sin that's like a little bit more minor. It's a sin where you tell like a little white lie, or you you promise that you'll do your chores and then you forget to do it and you don't do it. Things like that. A mortal sin really, really badly impacts our relationship with God. That is when you do something really, really bad, a really big sin. You know that it's a sin, and you do it on purpose, and you think about it ahead of time and say, I'm going to do this anyway. So that could be, let's say somebody really makes you mad, and so you decide you're going to get them back, and you're going to take something special out of their backpack. You're going to try to hit them. You're going to tell a lie about them that will get them in big trouble, even though it's not true. Things like that. Those are bigger sins. Those are mortal sins. And those are the ones that are really, really, really important to try to get your relationship with God back through confession. So there's this sin that has been with us from the beginning, from humans in the beginning. And then even when that's gone from baptism, there's still all these temptations that make us want to make bad decisions. So how do we get over that? And the answer is Jesus. So he gives us hope. He's the one that sacrificed for us and made it possible to have forgiveness from God just by saying, hey, God, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Jesus soon. But after this is going to be an activity that I'm going to have posted for you, where we're going to talk about what sins are versus mistakes. So just to give you an idea, a lot of what has to do with sin is doing it on purpose, knowing that it's a sin. Mistakes are more of things where you don't mean for something to happen. You don't think about it ahead of time and say, oh, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be bad. So if you, for example, when we talked about the picture frame, if you break your mom's picture frame, it's a sin. If you hide it, you lie about it, you don't tell her, she asks you about it, you say, no, I don't know. But if you broke it accidentally, like let's say you were running and you went around the corner too fast and you bumped the table and the picture fell off and it was a total accident and you didn't do it on purpose, that's a mistake. If you go to your mom and you say, hey, Mom, I'm so sorry, like I ran into this table and this fell and everything, that's a mistake. If you say to your friend, oh my gosh, thank you for letting me borrow your shirt, I'll bring it back today to school, and you're rushing around in the morning and you're super busy and you forget about it, and you didn't forget it on purpose, you just were so busy you forgot. That's a mistake. That's not a sin. You didn't on purpose say, I want to keep that shirt longer because I want to wear it tomorrow and I'm not going to bring it. That would be a sin. But if you're just busy and you're like, oh my gosh, I left it on the table, I feel so bad, that's a mistake. So we're going to try to talk about the difference between those two and give you a chance to practice the difference, because that's very important for knowing what kinds of things are worthy of feeling guilty about, what kinds of things do you need to ask for forgiveness about, what kind of things do you need to confess for your first reconciliation and all your reconciliations after that.